Welcome to the Alpine Church of Spiritual Living this morning. I am going to be reading the thought for the week, and then you can join me at the bottom, those here in the room where it's in the bold area. The theme this month is Step Out in Faith. As we approach Palm Sunday and Holy Week in the Christian tradition, Jesus entered the city of Jerusalem with cheering shouts of Hosanna, which in just a few short days turned into cries of, "Let us crucify him." Jesus was well aware this turn of events was to be God's will. Though even in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked if this cup could pass his lips, but not my will, but thine be done. This Sunday's topic is the wounds of life. Jesus was the way shower, the great example, who was not shielded from the wounds of life, but endured them to rise above. All of us on this earth plane will experience some wounds of life, for there is a collective consciousness permeating all. There is a greater perspective, a more inclusive and encompassing divine spiritual energy weaving through all our individual lives. Our challenge is to change our perspective from I and me to we and ours. Taking a God's eye perspective allows us to transcend our limited identity and limited self-interest. Death is a magnificent teacher if we are willing to accept its lessons. There is eternal dying and rebirthing of life within itself. Look at how many times you have lived and died in this incarnation through experiences, relationships, and circumstances. As we step out in faith while feeling our feelings to allow them to simply be, our lives are broadened, and we are released from the stronghold of smallness into the compassion, humility, and gratitude. This coming week, allow, let, and accept that life is for you, no matter what trouble may befall you. Know that you are not going through life alone, but are part of the universal divine intelligence and grace, broadening and bringing forth the infinite radiance of love and light. I realize, say with me, please, I realize no one is exempt from the wounds of life. I also know as I broaden my perspective, I am released from the grip of pain and suffering to bring forth compassion, peace, and even joy. For this, I am eternally grateful, and it is so. Okay. Move things around. So this morning's message is a bit of a paradoxical one, I was thinking. Because on one hand, our theme this month is Step Out in Faith. And yet our topic this morning is the wounds of life. And that to me, in the human mind, if I am stepping out in faith, then I have the expectation that everything's just going to be hunky-dory. Everything's going to work out just fine. But in all actuality, life's experiences don't always end up hunky-dory. They don't always give us what we want or what we expect. I think today's message brings up the messiness of life. We cannot get through this life without having some sort of pain, even suffering, wounds. It happens to us all. And what our human mind wants to say and wants to think is why? Why does this have to be? Why does this have to happen? And there is no absolute answer that any of us that can come up with for each and every person. All we can do is go back to our center, go back to our source, back to our inner place where we find the peace, we find the wisdom, where that divine energy resides in quiet repose. And ask to learn and glean and bring forth the lesson, the message, from whatever the hurt, whatever the downfall is that we are going through at the time. For us to go dig deep into our souls, dig deep into our internal awareness, to find where is the divine energy and power bringing forth its good through me. It's the time when we are able to broaden our perspective, to look into life from a broader way than just this minute, tiny little me. Today is Palm Sunday. This is the day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, by the way, is a city that was designated, or means in metaphysical terms, peace, the city of peace. And so Jesus rode in on a donkey, on a baby colt. And he did this to fulfill the prophecies that were so told that this is the way that he would come in. It also signifies and teaches us that as we come into the city of peace, that we are to do it with humility. We are to do it with a lowliness, not with a major grandeur of pomp and circumstance. Though the people greeted him that way. They were Hosanna, and they put the palm fronds down, and they were expecting him to be their king. He knew what was going to be happening in the balance of that week. I believe that Jesus' life, everything that he did in a teaching manner. He did so that he can show us, to remove us from the shackles of our limited life into the area that we can express our divine energy, to express our divine presence. And sometimes that means just going with the flow of life and not bucking it. That means that we are to let and allow life to carry us sometimes, as it will. And rather than kicking and screaming and dragging our feet, it might behoove us to bring in some humility, to bring in some quietness, and let it be. We are, of course, studying David Hawkins' book, Letting Go, and that book also gives us the similar message, to allow whatever comes up, whatever bubbles up into our lives, let it be. Don't fight it, don't resist it. And as we do that and acknowledge it, it is easier for it to move through us. Yesterday, there was a group of us that met at Charlene's home and walked the labyrinth in her cistern chapel that she had made there. It's 20 feet across. And before we began, we set our intention. And so we all came together to go within and ask our higher self, what is the intention for my walking this labyrinth today? And as the procedure of walking the labyrinth goes, as you go into it with an intention, you bring your inner self, as you come into the center of the labyrinth, you go within to your center. And then once you get in the center, what we all did is, because the cistern chapel is a metal building, it's like a big water tank. So the acoustics in there are amazing. And so we started singing some of the songs that we sing here and feeling that energy. And then as you file back out through the labyrinth, then you have the intention to bring the actions of what will bring this intention to come to life in earth out. So as we go in, we are reflecting on our internal self, and as we go out, we are allowing this intention to show up however it will. So I chose as my intention yesterday to be present to the presence at every moment, to allow myself to just simply let life be and not fight it. And I think that when we do that, it brings us into a greater knowledge, into a greater experience of having the faith that is within us, the confidence of the faith that we have in us. Because we can sit all day and think and decide and choose what should happen in life or what shouldn't happen in life. And the fact of the matter is, life happens. One of my mentors, Martha Creek, I remember her saying as we were going through this conversation about grieving, and she said, we don't get to choose, we don't get to pick when somebody leaves this earth plane, when that soul's ready to move on. So as I think about what should happen and what shouldn't happen, I was reminded, well, actually just to give you a little background. Today is Adeline's 4th birthday. My granddaughter's turning 4. And as I watched her this last week, she is very specific in what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And she will tell you with dire detail, oh no, you need to do it this way. No, don't do it that way. Lindsay calls her the auditor.
Isn't Lindsay an auditor?
And Lindsay is a financial analyst, kind of, yeah, but that's a familiar word to her, isn't it? So as I was telling Adeline, as I'm observing her, I said, you know, Adeline, you need to get a T-shirt like Connie had when we had Ray's life celebration a couple weeks ago. Connie asked everybody to wear a T-shirt, maybe a funny one, because Ray was always in T-shirts, so wear a funny T-shirt. So Connie's T-shirt said, I'm not bossy, I just know what you should be doing. And I said, that's for you, Adeline. That's what the kind of T-shirt you need to wear is, I know what you should be doing. But that all falls within the arena of our ego, doesn't it? That what I know is best for you. But today we are going a little beyond that small egoic self, way beyond that small egoic self. We are going into that area that accepts life as it is, warts and all. After the message this morning, I've chosen one of Rita Harrington's songs that I want you to hear. And the name of it is Hold On. And as you listen to the words, you'll hear her say, have faith, God is in us. Hold on, you can make it. And then a little bit later in the same song, she sings, and then she adds, let go, just surrender. Hold on, let go. Hold on, let go. It's the paradox of life. It's the contrast of having and not having. The important underlying message, though, I believe that we should retain and receive and live is that there is one life that has a multiplicity of events, of circumstances, of people, and to just allow it to be. Allow that one life to flow freely through us. I hope this coming week that you will keep in mind that this is, in the Christian tradition, a Holy Week. And you'll think about and ponder the messages, the teachings that Jesus gave us in that last week. I want you to think about the fact that, first of all, wherever you arrive, wherever you are going, to bring with you humility, to bring with you an openness, a greater air about you than a small egoic self, to be inclusive. I want you to think about the fact that you can expect that people will betray you. These are all the different events that Jesus experienced in that last week. People will betray you. You will be disappointed. People won't do what you think they should do. I want you to think about the reality, the lesson of celebrating. When Jesus had his Last Supper, what did he do before that Last Supper started? He washed the feet of the disciples. He's always teaching us the manner in which we are to live. So we are to serve. We are to give. We are not to think that there's any way that we can be higher or better than anyone else. I've been reading the Book of Joy, and the Dalai Lama at one point was hosting a group of mucky mucks, priests or whatever from another land. And this one person, I guess they're a holy person, they knew they were a holy person because they needed to be on a higher level sitting than anyone else in the room, including the Dalai Lama. Of course, at the time, he was young. And in the Book of Joy, he's talking about the fact that he was hoping, not really hoping, but he was thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great if something happened and that chair just toppled over? He was emphasizing the fact that we are all humans, not to make thinking that we are better than anyone else. And that was Jesus was teaching us when he washed the feet of his disciples. And then they drank, they ate, they communed, and to know that that's part of our living. Remember to pray. He was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed, asking, if this can pass, fine, but if not, thy will be done. When we ask, thy will be done, we are in the unknown. We are stepping out in faith because we don't know what God's will is. But when we can be open and receptive to knowing that it is for our highest and best good, then we can take the gleaning of the message from it and carry it forward in our life. Remember that you're going to have wounds. He had to carry that cross. He was stabbed. He was tortured. He was, it was not a pretty scene. A crown of thorns. Remember what he taught on the cross. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Life is a continuum. We have lots of little beginnings and lots of little endings through this experience that we call humanness. At every moment, life gives us the opportunity to rise up or to fall down, and we will be doing both. The important thing is, as we fall down, we take the lesson and we bring ourselves back up. I want you to be curious this coming week. I want you to be open and available. I want you to have a strong expectation that no matter what it looks like, this too is God. This too is good. And to know that this too shall pass. I have a friend that was telling of his grandfather's passing. His grandfather was on his deathbed. And the grandfather said to him, I've always known when to hold and when to fold in my life. Now is the time for me to fold. And it's okay. It's gonna be all right. We will all face a time when we have to let go of this physicalness. But I want you to recognize that that is not the end, that this life continues on. And yes, we have ups and downs. We have contrast. We have black and white. And as Rita tells us, hold on. You can make it. God is in us. Let go and surrender. Accept the paradox of life and see and experience and share the goodness of it with each other. Love and light to you all. Namaste.